And I'd like to, if I may, have a councillor make a motion to move under new business the site plan, which is 8.5. If we could move that to, I'll say 8.1.
Or do you want? Could we have it before the warden's remarks?
We want to go way up there.
If it's possible.
Okay. Would you agree to move that before the warden's remarks? So you want to put that under, what do you want to?
Just call it number 5 and slide everything down.
Call it number 5 and slide everything down. So can I have a motion to do that? And also in, well, no, I'll have a motion first for that. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda with the following. I'm looking for it right now.
Changes.
Following changes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find it.
8.5.
I'd like to move that we move item to 8.5, the site appeal approval, or sorry, the site plan approval appeal to item number 5 on the agenda, and move every other number down one.
Yes. Okay. Do we have a seconder for that? And seconded by Councillor Cushion. Discussion, go ahead.
Yes, I think also we wanted to add an in-camera portion of the meeting at the end of the meeting. So as an amendment.
Yes, I don't know if that had been.
It
can go in the same. Okay, you're adding that. You second that also. You'll agree with that. Yes. Okay. So you've had the amendment. 8.5 becomes 5, and that we have an in-camera session at the end of closing of the meeting. And we've had a seconder. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded. Motion carried. Item number 3, declaration of any conflict of interest. If any councillor sees any, if they can declare it now. If not, when the item comes up, if you would, please. Item number 4, approval of the minutes. You have that in your package. What is the wishes of council? Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 25th, 2019, the regular council meeting minutes, and also a motion to include the September 25th public transcript meeting minutes.
Been moved by Councillor or Deputy Warden Cunningham and seconded by Councillor Durkee. Was there any further discussion on the motion? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Contrary minded. Motion carried. Thank you. So next item, number 5, is site plan approval appeal. Roger, if you'd come forward, please. Go ahead, your mic's on.
Thank you. Thank you as well for moving the item up in the agenda. The applicant is actually here tonight. Mr. Smith is back here. He's the gentleman that'd like to do a home occupation in the Carleton Village. Victoria, do you want to read the entire briefing, or how would you like me to?
I think it's important to read the briefing because it provides the context.
Okay. Okay, so I'll work my way through this briefing. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to chime in or whatever. So the file is for a site plan approval on PID number 903-15094, and that's at 4342 Highway 340 in Carleton. It's submitted to the Municipal Council for their approval or non-approval. The background behind this file is that planning legislation, policies, and bylaws. So the municipality's municipal planning strategy and land use bylaw per the Municipal Government Act set out a policy and regulations for site plan approvals. Section 231 and 232 of the MGA provides the legislative authorities that are allowed within the MPS and the LUB. Section 231.4 provides for specific elements that a site plan approval may seek to, and we have some appendix notes to this, may speak to, I should say. In addition, Section 232.3 sets out a framework for council to hear an appeal. Policy 8.8 of the Municipal Planning Strategy describes home occupations and sets out more stringent requirements in certain zones for certain types of home occupations known to be a possible source of conflict with adjacent residential uses. Moreover, 8.8.1.4 states that it shall be the policy of the council to establish specific site plan approval requirements in the land use bylaw that will apply to certain types of home occupations with the potential to cause conflict with adjacent residential uses. Furthermore, policy 15.1.8.1 of the Municipal Planning Strategy states, it shall be the policy of council to use the Municipal Government Act site plan approval process to enable home occupations for automotive repair shops, small gas engine repair, portable sawmill operations, kennels, recycling depots, firewood operations, and construction and recycled building material operations. Also, small-scale wind turbine generator developments will be dealt with by site plan approval. In addition, Section 232(1) A and B of the Municipal Government Act requires that site plan approvals be granted unless certain conditions are not met. In accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Sections 232(2) and 236(1), within 7 days after granting a variance in the case of a site plan approval, the development officer shall give notice in writing to every assessed owner whose property is within the greater of 30 meters and the distance set out by the land use bylaw or the policy of the applicant's property. Section 236(3) states that where a variance is granted, a property owner served by a notice may appeal the decision to council within 14 days after receiving the notice. The proposed development. The owner of the property known as PID 903-15094, which is currently zoned Carlton Village Zone, wishes to establish an automotive repair business as a home occupation by constructing a building. Per the Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw, the owner applied for and was granted site plan approval. As stated above, the development officer, myself, was required to notify property owners. In accordance with the Municipal Government Act, Sections 232(2) and 236(1), within 7 days after granting a variance, in this case a site plan approval, the development officer shall give notice in writing to every assessed owner whose property is within the greater of 30 meters and a distance set out by the land use bylaw or the policy of the applicant's property. Section 236(3) states that where a variance is granted, a property owner served by a notice may appeal the decision to council within 14 days of the notice. So the status of this file. On October 1st, 2019, an appeal of the site plan approval was filed with the CAO. The applicant's issues summary is: number one, concern over traffic safety entering and exiting the property. Number two, environmental concerns for which the site plan approval does not address. Number three, building code enforcement process questions. The owner of the property in question has received approval from the Nova Scotia Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal for and has constructed a driveway entrance, cleared the land where the proposed building is to be constructed, and has paid a deposit on the building to be constructed. To date, no development permit or building permit has been approved. The options available to council: number one, uphold the site plan approval as is. Number two, overturn the site plan approval. Number three, amend the site plan approval by adding requirements where within the municipal purview that speak to the applicant's concerns. The recommendation of the CAO and myself. Item number one, in the appeal raises concerns around traffic entering and exiting the proposed business. This matter is administered by the Nova Scotia Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal Council can direct the applicant to the appropriate office to answer the applicant's concern or decide to accept the transportation approval provided. Item number 2, make several assumptions around environmental contaminants. The Nova Scotia Department of Environment does not have any permit requirements for this type of facility. However, the building code does have content that speaks to some matters. An example of projects which would require Department of Environment approval would be projects which require washroom facilities and piped water systems and the installation of an on-site sewage disposal system. It would be noted that there is no plan or requirement for these types of systems to be installed in this building. The Municipal Government Act speaks to dangerous and unsightly matters. The Municipality District of Yarmouth Solid Waste Bylaw provides a framework for handling the solid waste that will be generated. These matters can be laid out to the appellant, or council can decide to accept the application as provided and reiterate that the owner will be responsible for any environmental contamination should occur. If any environmental contamination should occur, and Department of Environment is the governing body there. Item number 3 makes inquiries around building permit and inspection process. Appendix B outlines a summary of the required inspections during the construction process. This can be provided to the appliant. I can't even read tonight, appellant. Further, item number 3 raises some concerns around screening. Council can choose to accept the proposed screening as indicated on the site plan. However, the Municipal Government Act and the Municipality District of Yarmouth's Municipal Planning Strategy and Land Use Bylaw give Council the authority to specify screening standards. If screening specifications are made, they should be verifiable and measurable. An approach of this matter would provide a balanced and reasonable approach to the implementation of the Municipal Planning Strategy and the Land Use Bylaw. Woo. So we have some accompanying maps that I'm hoping Mike can put up on the screen. First of all, I'm wondering if we can get the map of the...
I think all he has are those photos.
The photo? Okay.
Yeah, the maps are in the package.
So the councilors, in your package, you have some maps. One map is more of a distant view of the properties with some property lines. Is that something you can find? Or?
Yep,
Okay, all right. So what that's for is to give you a general idea where this is taking place. The second map, which has a series of numbers and green arrows, is what I'll draw your attention to now, if I can. Everyone got that? Okay. So right now we are looking at arrow number 1. And what happened there is I went to the site and I took pictures from every possible angle I could think of to give you a good visual of what it looks like on the ground there, to help you make your decision. So picture number 1 is the one we're looking at now. It basically looks into the driveway of the gentleman's home and is pointing from the road in to the east. We can go to picture number 2, Mike, please. So picture number 2 is a picture from the angle of the house across the street, 4343. It's basically the view the gentleman would have from his front living room window. And number 3, please. So number 3 is from that same gentleman's home, pointing towards the applicant's house. Number 4, please. So there's another house across the road, nearly across from where the development is proposed, and that's 4355. And I took a picture right from their driveway pointing towards the entrance of this site.
May I ask a quick question? That's
Sure.
the new driveway?
Yes,
to the site.
yeah.
My quick question would be, what was there before? Just trees and shrubs?
Before, it would just be an uncleared field. Yeah, there was no culvert there before.
No, no.
Number 5 is looking directly into the new driveway.
Okay.
Number 6, Mike, please. So number 6 is looking, it's at the property line, looking back towards the gentleman's home. As you can see, you can't even see the house. The next picture, Mike, please. For that picture, I just made a 90-degree turn and took a picture looking into the person's property who made the appeal. So that's where this it's an undeveloped lot at this time. That's right at the edge of the road. Number 8, please. So number 8 is just going about in off the road about as far as the applicant's house is, and just looking straight towards his house. The site, proposed site, would be to the right of that big evergreen, not evergreen tree, but the hardwood tree there, the big green one. Number 9, please. Number 9, I've gone further back to the very back of that cleared area. And again, the proposed building would be to the right of the large green tree there, way back towards those red trees. Number 10, please. Number 10, I'm walking now around the back of the applicant's property and trying to get every possible view from the gentleman who appealed this. So if you look back on that view, you can barely see the house on the left, and this development would be over by the orange-colored trees. Number 11, please. Number 11 is the extreme northwest corner of the property of the gentleman who appealed this. And I tried to get a view as best I could of what you'd see of a proposed building. And again, it would be over where that orange tree is on the far right there. Somewhere between there and the yellow tree. Number 12, please. Number 12, I'm going more over towards where the proposed building is going to be. And the stake that you see in the center of the picture is the southeast corner of the proposed building. So that clearing is where the building is proposed to go. 13, please. So 13 is essentially straight out the driveway. 14, please. So 14 is pretty much in the center of the footprint of the proposed building and just facing back towards the main road. So, yes.
Use your microphone, please, Lauren.
Go ahead.
Back to the picture of 14. How far from the main road to that is it, roughly?
It is, we do have a site plan here, I just have to look it up for you. So that distance from that picture is approximately, you have to add some, I would say you're looking at about 60 meters from the edge of the road, yeah. Although we're,
60 meters, yeah. Okay,
although we're a little
I found
bit,
it on the thing.
where we're located is a little bit in
60
back of that, to the east of that, yeah.
That's 190 feet of it.
190 feet or so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Warden, Councilor Durkee.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do some calculating. Councillor Durkee, please. Go
No
ahead.
worries. Roger, does the owner, so if I'm looking at the picture, not those pictures, but on here, the overhead map. So the person who has the property who is appealing this, does his property wrap around the back of the applicant's property?
It does. It extends from the highway to the east, and then goes to the north up to that number 11, if you can see that on the numbered picture.
Yes, number,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, so that's what I wondered. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, is there any further questions? Go ahead, Councillor Arnold.
So there's no dwelling on the property as of yet of the person that is appealing.
No.
What, have we heard anything from the other residents, like on the other side of the road, the ones that are living there?
Nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
Councillor Cunningham?
Right, just talk a little bit about the screening requirements and those types of things and how that's to be kept up over time. And will there be like a lot of vehicles around? Will there be parts vehicles around? All those types of things. I guess those are all important questions too.
Yeah. I'll attempt to answer some of those questions, but I'm not sure. Do we go to asking the applicant? Is that something that we do here, Victoria? Like,
It's not a public hearing.
okay, you got it. All right, so I'll do my best. So there are a number of items that we do have to address when we do these applications. So those questions were asked, and the question about screening was asked. The northern boundary of this property is simply a treed lot. So my question was, what is the plan for storing of, let's say, vehicles that may require parts and have to stay there for a while, or simply parts or larger parts of vehicles that have been fixed and are going to be disposed of? Where is that going to go? So what was decided that there would be a fence put from the southeast corner of the building, running eastward along the rear parking lot behind the building. I'm not sure if you have that diagram. I'm pretty sure you may.
Yep,
It's more of a line diagram.
Yes.
this one?
Fence screen I
Yes.
have on
Yep, it's in
mine.
their package.
Okay. So so that rear parking lot would be fenced off so that from nearly every visible angle that we could think of, you wouldn't be able to see anything back there. Now, there would be cars that would be parked in the front of the building because there's going to be a gravel area, proposed anyway. There's going to be a gravel area in the front of the building towards the road and another gravel area in the back. But the screening is for things that are going to stay there for any length of time that are going to be stored on site. Yeah. And you had another question. I actually forgot what it was, but was that it, or?
You have to.
I think that was the main one,
Yeah.
but also because we've run into this before, and I mean, this is just a general case,
Yeah.
but we've run into this with people storing parts, cars, and the beauty of it's in the eye of the beholder. The utility of the vehicle is in the eye of the beholder. Do we know how many parts vehicles might be out there? Because with repair, sometimes used vehicles are very, very useful common parts.
Yeah.
And so maybe, and this just goes to I'd like to understand better, just do we have any limitation on the numbers of parts cars that could be there? I mean, if we've got a few cars lined up for repair, that's different than having a few cars lined up for repair and having 20 parts vehicles on, that type of thing. I mean, just to understand, is that, which scenario is it, or is it something in between, or?
Right.
Those are very different things.
If I may?
Yeah.
That is a hard question for Roger because he is our development officer for him now. So I'm going to direct the question, if you could come down and just sit there with Roger and maybe speak to the microphone to his question.
Come right over here, yeah. Right here.
Oh, excellent.
If
Thank
you'd
you.
introduce yourself first.
My name is Darren Smith. Of course, I live in Carleton. In response to your question, my intentions are to have zero. As far as like a salvage style vehicle or anything of that nature, I have no intentions in being in that kind of a business. My idea is to fix them and then return them and move on to the next.
Go ahead,
No,
Counselor.
thank you for answering that, because that's a very big difference and very important for council to hear, and if the appellants or neighbors ask that question, I think it's all beholden on us to be able to answer it, so.
Yeah, this will.
Thank you, that's
yeah,
very
This will not be
helpful.
a salvage yard style operation or anything to that nature.
Okay, good, thank you.
Not at all. Yep.
Councillor Cushion?
Well, if I may, if you're going to be in an automotive repair business, you're not going to want too many derelict vehicles kicking around there in the first place. You just want them in and out, and
That's
you need a
correct.
place for people to bring the cars, trucks, or whatever to be repaired, and they're gone. So you may have, 5 or 6 cars on your lot that are in need of repair, but they're going to be moving in and out.
They're all within the process at that point.
That's right, yeah.
Because of course, at the end of the day, I live there as well, and I don't want to look at
Yeah.
that and my neighbors
But
as
again,
well.
by the end of the day, you might have 3 or 4 cars there for the next day's work.
Definitely.
So that's normal. And hopefully you do have that many there at all the time.
That's what I'm shooting for.
Was there any further questions from council? Councillor Durkee, go ahead.
I have one. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Darren, Roger, you're having an effect on me here. Will there be excess tires piled up around that property?
If there is any tires, there will always, of course, there's a program that does pick them up. You have to put them in one specific area for them to come and pick up, and that will be located behind the building, which will, of course, be hidden well by the fencing or screening, I believe we called it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's part of the purpose for that.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
If there's no one further from council, I have a couple of questions. First one directed to you, Roger. Water courses. Is there any nearby water courses? That's always a discussion somewhere down the road.
Of course. I was on pretty much the whole site. I saw no sign of any kind of a water course or stream.
There's no, I'll say, cattle watering hole or not, there's no,
Not that I
nothing
can
like that?
recall. No.
Nothing
no.
of that nature?
Yeah.
So I guess if questions came to council, I mean, that one has been covered. Now, I'm not sure who answers the next question. I believe it's either Roger or the CAO. Reading through your MGA Act, after it had been served notice to any of the surrounding areas, they have 14 days. My question, is that 14 working days or 14 days? Because I'm looking at the appellant, they sent it back, or they mailed it, I take it, on October 1st, 2019.
Yes.
From the date that you sent it from your letter, that was the 14th day. So I'm taking it, this letter came from, I believe, Ontario. So, I mean, does it have to be within 14 days at the municipal office or 14 days from when it's written and sent?
So the way it's worded is, you have 14 days to appeal from the time you receive the notice.
Yes.
So what we always do is we give 2 weeks, 2 working weeks, plus a weekend, just in case it takes a while for the mail to get there. It doesn't really say anything other than that, just 14 days from when they receive it.
Well, I was just going with, they were very good to, you sent the letter on September 17th. I believe they received the letter on September 23rd at 4:30 PM, would it have been?
Yeah.
Is that the way I read it?
Where are you?
I'm on,
Oh, yep.
that's when they received it, which was the 23rd. So 14 days brings it to October 1st. That's when she or they wrote their letter with their issues, their
Right.
concerns. So does it have to be 14 days, then they can send a letter, or does it have to be at our office, received by our CAO on the 14th day, by the 14th day?
Well,
Or am I being nitpicky?
I can jump in there,
Oh,
Roger.
please,
So,
yeah.
so we have deemed it received on time.
Okay, I'm fine.
yeah.
I'm fine with that. That's what it is, that's what it is. And so on, I was just questioning.
Yep.
What is the wishes then of council on this? Councillor Cushion, you have the floor.
Thank you. So from what what Roger's gone over, and from my understanding, the issues that were brought to the attention of the person appealing this It seems like all the questions have been answered, so, and it doesn't seem to be any really debate on some of the answers that have been provided, so
He meets all the
I guess I'm
criteria.
going to say, what's the problem? Excuse me.
I can't answer that right at the moment, but go ahead, Councillor.
Well, in that vein, I guess whereas the approval process went through, the development officer met with the developer and so forth, the plans were put in, approved, there's been an appeal, but again, the recommendation of the CEO and the development officer, so number one, clearly, the first issue was with TIR. TIR approves that's been approved, the culvert's in, the access has been granted, that's not our jurisdiction, so I don't think we should speak to that. Item number 2, the environmental piece, we've been down that road many, many times. That's a provincial issue too, so I don't think we should speak to that, deny the, I don't think that we should hold this up on the basis of those two pieces. The third piece is the screening and so forth. That's been discussed with our development officer and complied with to the extent that it's in the development agreement. So given all those factors, and thank you for coming in tonight, I'd move that we proceed with the development as circulated this evening.
Okay, it's been moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Cushion. Further discussion, Deputy Warden?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I guess what I'm asking is this motion that's on the floor, is it to uphold the site plan approval as is? Is that the intention of this motion?
That is what the mover and seconder, I mean, that's what you're...
I'm just being very clear what I'm voting on, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, because there were 3 recommendations, that one was uphold the site plan approval as is, or number 2, overturn the site plan approval, or number 3, amend the site plan approval by adding requirements. I'm just making sure on what I'm voting on.
Council didn't want any site plan improvements or changes to the site plan. You're happy with the site plan as presented?
Okay, I was just making
Yeah.
myself very clear on that. And one thing that I should mention is that's a business that's needed out in the Carleton area, since I am the councillor out there. There's one business that used to do this type of repair. They are no longer operating, I don't think, because the old operator, this would be Carleton Auto Repair, it was called at the time. That was larger than a home occupation business, by the way. I think this is something that our MPS and land use, municipal planning strategy and land use bylaws that we seen a need way back when we first went through all those. And this is a perfect example of someone trying to work at home. It's a small business, and I really do wish you the best.
Thank you. Was there any further discussion on the motion?
Question on the motion.
Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, go ahead, Deputy Warden.
If I may, since there was a concern raised and council did not address any concerns of the appellant, does that appellant have any recourse? Does that go towards, see where this one's a little bit different than a land use rezoning or something
Yes,
like
yeah.
that? So I was just wondering if that goes to utility, or if it could go back to the utility and review board.
Nope,
think-
the decision by council on the appeal is final,
Okay, thank you
with
very much.
respect to site plan approvals.
This is the first time that I can remember
Yeah.
that council, in my 11 years, that we've actually gone through a site plan approval before council.
Yeah.
That's the reason why I'm asking.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. And congratulations. Item number 6 is the warden's report. And at this time, I'm pleased that I have some people in the audience. Gloria and Greg, you have the opportunity to listen to a warden's report. I've sat and listened to a lot of yours, Gloria. Mine won't be in as much detail as what yours usually is, but and mine is usually a little briefer. Now, Daniel might, he might state different, but, ladies and gentlemen, and to the public, the fall season is here. It's a lot cooler in the morning and a lot cooler in the evening as we get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and step outside. It's very cool. The leaves have changed color. The hunting season is here. Deer apples and carrots are being sold by many residents as some income from quick cash, I guess I'd call it. Also, in traveling my district and around through the municipality to a degree, see a lot of the local fishers repairing and making ready their fishing gear for the upcoming season. But first and foremost, to both the hunters and the fishers, remember safety first. It's very important. But I did notice, and I've had a couple of quick discussions in Halifax this past week, and I had a discussion this morning pertaining to all of the nylon and polyethylene rope that is being used and being put aside. A lot of that ends up at our transfer station and is shipped to Queens to be buried in a landfill. I believe there can be a project and so on, and I had encouragement from a CAO this morning, and Councillor Cushion was there, and I think there's an opportunity for the 3 municipal units in Region 7 to maybe start looking at and bringing the other municipal units on side, that we can find an entrepreneur that may be able to do something or actively invest into trying to do something, because when if I say tons, I mean literally hundreds of tons of polyethylene and nylon rope, and it's going in the ground, or at a landfill, and it's costing our taxpayers $125 a ton to do that. So, anyway, an item of interest for a lot of the general public out there, and councillors for both the town and municipality and for Argyle and so on realize this. We have a cruise ship that has been coming to Yarmouth since last year, and I believe, I'm not sure, Gerard's not here. It's coming 4 times. It'll be
3 and once to Shelburne.
Yeah, it's been to Yarmouth 3 times off of Yarmouth Harbour, and what they do is they ferry the passengers into the town of Yarmouth to the port, and those people get off, and usually it's in the 100 to 125 of the passengers will come ashore. Some of them will take excursions to different parts of Yarmouth County. One of the items or one of the areas they travel to is the Cape Fichu Lighthouse. The other area that they'll sometimes travel to is the Acadian Village in Pubnico, which showcases both the Argyle and the Cape Fichu showcases the Yarmouth municipality. Also, a lot of them will just walk the streets of Yarmouth, visiting the stores and so on. The ship is coming back one more time, but it is stopping in at Shelburne Harbour, and if you're ready, they'll be busing those passengers. They want to come to Yarmouth, they want to do the lighthouse, they want to do the Acadian Village and so on. So they're going to be busing those people, and that's in the early part of November, if I'm not mistaken.
October 30th.
October 30th? Okay. Another item that some of you may not be aware of was just here a week or so ago, September 25th, really, well, we should say a month ago. September 25th, this area, the town of Yarmouth, hosted Community in Bloom. And I had the opportunity to go to one of their functions and so on. I think I've already mentioned this, but to the general public, somewhere in the area, 250 delegates and so on. Many of those delegates, again, Cape Fichu and Acadian Village and so on, plus done a lot of other sightseeing areas of our county. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to congratulate the town of Yarmouth on being able to acquire the Communities in Bloom expose or conference, because the delegates were from around the world. They weren't just out of North America, but they were from around the world. So it gave us a great opportunity. So again, thank you to the town of Yarmouth to have taken up that challenge. It was a big project. And from my understanding, from talking with business people and so on, that everybody seemed to enjoy it. And I know the municipality of Yarmouth was one of the sponsors and so on for that, or in that project. So again, congratulations to the town of Yarmouth. One of the projects at the municipality, and it's moving along quite well, is our Public Works building. I know to a degree it is kept on our Facebook page of the municipality, our progress and so on. And here this past week, I believe the roof and so on was finished and so on, the walls. So now they'll be able to start working inside, and hopefully they'll have it finished in time for us. January 31st is the completion date, I believe. Yes. So just to give you a quick update, I know some of you have a little bit of a knowledge and so on. I was away last week from the 15th to the 18th for meetings in Halifax, and I'm going to give you a quick, real quick update. One of the meetings that I had to attend was Beyond Foods, and you may ask, what is Beyond Foods? It is a startup company. We've all seen energy drinks. We've all seen those powders that you can buy when you go to the drugstores and so on for energy drinks and so on. Beyond Foods is a company that is started up. They're very small at this time, but they've already acquired sponsorship from the NHL hockey teams, so on, the Washington Capitals, and believe it or not, hey, the Montreal Canadiens have endorsed their product. And they are taking food, vegetables, and any type of fruit and so on that is reaching the end of its life in stores, and they are processing that back down to a powder. From that powder, you can make energy drinks. They have partnered with Sobeys. They have connected with 12 of the Sobeys stores in Nova Scotia to start supplying them with this food that's reaching the end of their They are situated, as it sits right now, at the Burnside Industrial Park. They know already their building is way too small, and it is. They are looking to expand and for a new facility. So I, along with a fellow councillor from Colchester County, who sits on the board with me, we put up our hands real quick. Be interested today in, if you wish, the municipality of Yarmouth, we would be more than welcome to entertain you and have that discussion. Colchester also told them at the same time they would be interested. Well, Colchester kind of won out in that respect because they are partnering with Sobeys. Sobeys has a main warehouse in Debert, and they mentioned the Debert Airport has plenty of land, and they basically made up their mind already. They're going to Debert, which is right beside Sobeys. So, but I did try. I wanted to let you know I stepped in as quick as I could. But that is a new venture that is happening, eh? So they're trying to do. Waste is a big item on Nova Scotia's mind, and so on. I did then have a meeting with one of the organizations I sat on, Divert Nova Scotia. We had a strategy meeting. We started at 9 o'clock in the morning. We took a half hour for dinner, and we ended at around 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and had some major discussions on moving forward with Divert on their strategy. And right now, the province of Nova Scotia mandated to Regional Chair Solid Waste Management Committee, which I chair. They had mandated us about 2 years ago to start looking at an efficiency program that's happening in Nova Scotia with all of the solid waste facilities. That has been completed. It's a 340-page document. I got to return it to Greg. It's my copy for Greg to go through. There's a lot of information, a lot of facts, figures, and so on. But if we follow that efficiency study to the letter of the law, there would be a lot of changes in Nova Scotia's solid waste management system. The province of Nova Scotia right now, the Department of Environment, They're not going to do anything with the study. They're waiting for municipal units and/or Divert Nova Scotia or the Solid Waste Management Committee to start and act on it. And our committee is looking at possibly through AMAs. That's why I asked the other day of Valan, who was the new person to, because it is a huge project, and it could make some major changes to the Nova Scotia, I won't say economy, but to some of the areas. Colchester, they have over 30 people working at their MRF alone. That possibly could be gone. Possibly could be gone. There's a lot of changes that could come down, because we're all well aware of the film plastic industry and what's happening with the single bag use, plastic bag and so on. So it's a big thing that's coming down. I spent basically 3 days in Halifax on that discussion, and that's only just the tip of the iceberg and so on. So just want to give you that kind of a quick update on that. Also, we're well aware that Halloween is coming up. I'm just asking the public to be very vigilant when they're out driving and so on. I realize, like in Carlton, John, at your store, they do the trunk thing. The Wesleyan Church here in the town of Yarmouth, I believe, does the trunk to keeps a lot of kids off the street. But there is still a lot of areas in rural areas that still walk. So we got to be very vigilant of them out walking. The other most important thing that's coming up is November 11th. And I'd like the general public to remember, and if they have the opportunity or if they can take the time, to please attend any one of the many Remembrance Day services that are going on, like in Carlton, Kemp, Port Maitland, South Ohio. There's also one at the Mariner Center, and believe it or not, well, I say believe it or not, over the last number of years, there's also down at the Cenotaph in the town of Yarmouth at the same time that the one in Mariner Center. And I'm going to be honest with you, the one at the old Cenotaph downtown still carries a lot of emotion. There was a lot of people. I was here last year. Lauren, you've done the one at Mariner Center last year. But the Cenotaph downtown, if it's a fairly decent day, take the opportunity, really. You know, that one there is really, really something. So that is my report. Tom, was there any questions or concerns from my report? Item number 7.1, Grant Thornton presentation of the 2018-2019 financials. Ooh. Just press the button there. Okay, your mic is on, Gloria.
Thank you very much, Warden. So you'll be happy tonight because my report is only going to be short. We did meet with your audit committee in August on the 29th, in which time I went through the non-consolidated statements and the consolidated statements in a great level of detail. And so tonight we'll just do a high-level overview, but I will take questions, of course, if you have any. So just as a reminder, your consolidated financial statements include your operations. So that's the operating fund, the capital fund, your reserves, as well as your proportionate share of the operations of the Yarmouth International Airport Corporation, the Yarmouth and Area Industrial Commission, the Yarmouth and Acadian Shores Tourism Association, the Mariner Center Management Authority, and the Yarmouth County Solid Waste Management Authority. So when we look at your income and expenses and your assets and your liabilities, it's added all of their balances together, okay? So I'm going to go to our audit report, which is on page 1. So the audit report is a little bit different this year than it was last year. There have been some changes in the standards over the past year in terms of making sure that the communication is clear in terms of roles and responsibilities. So the first thing that you'll note, if you remember the report from last year, is our audit opinion is the very first thing that comes. So in the past, our audit opinion would have been the very last thing that you saw. So they wanted to make sure that we pulled it up front so that you could see that it is a clean audit opinion. We did not find anything while we did our audit that would cause us to have to modify the terminology in the report. So it is a clean audit opinion. So this is for the financial statements, the consolidated financial statements for the municipality of the District of Yarmouth as at March 31st, 2019. So it is our opinion that the accompanying consolidated financial statements presents fairly in all material respects the financial position of the municipality of the District of Yarmouth as of March 31st, 2019, and the results of its operations and its cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. That's the framework that you fall under. In terms of the basis for our opinion, this would be similar to what would have been in the past. We have to follow the Canadian standards in how we perform all of our audits, and we make sure that we are in compliance with those standards as we do your audit. And we can say that we believe that the audit evidence that we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Then there's a section on the responsibilities of management and those charged with governance, which of course is your audit committee and ultimately you as council. So management is responsible for the preparation of the financial information that's used in these audits. They do it in accordance with the Canadian Public Sector Accounting Standards. They set the systems of internal controls that they feel is appropriate in the circumstances to make sure the financial data is properly accumulated. And their whole goal is to make sure that these financial statements are free of what we call fraud or error. Then what's new this year is in preparing the consolidated financial statements, management is responsible for assessing the municipality's ability to continue as a going concern. So that means that you've had to sit down and have a look at, how are things going? Are we planning to continue into the future? And in most cases, all municipalities are. And certainly in your case, when we look at your assets and liabilities, you'll see it's in a very healthy position. So, but that is new. We would have assumed always that was always being done, but they wanted it to come out and be actually written down on paper that you've made that assessment. As well, the very last line, those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the municipality's financial reporting processes. Again, it was inherent in our belief that that always happened, but now we've come out and said on paper that that is also part of the responsibilities of you. So on the second page is now all the responsibilities of us as your auditors. So it is a lot lengthier than it would have been in the past. But the first paragraph just says that our objective is to obtain a reasonable assurance about whether or not the financial statements are free of material misstatement. That's our goal. We want to make sure these statements are clear and concise, but also free of material misstatement. It goes on to say that while reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, it's not a guarantee that the audit that we conducted might not have uncovered a potential material error. That is new. That wouldn't have been in our audit report in the past. And that has come out of continuous litigation that's happened not only in the US, now starting in Canada as well. And when there happens to be fraud, which there is in lots of organizations, the auditors can't say for 100% sure that there couldn't be a material error. So they wanted us to say that in our audit report so everybody was clear, because lots of times people felt if you had an audit done, we looked at every transaction and there could be nothing possibly wrong, but that's not actually true. Everything we do is on a sample basis. We can't possibly look at every transaction or we'd be here year round and nobody would like us. So that's one of the things that's new in our audit report. And then the next section just goes on to more clearly stand out what it is that we do. So obviously we have to exercise our professional judgment and we have to maintain our professional skepticism. So even if we ask a question, if the answer that we get is not something we're comfortable with, we have to dig further. So while we don't audit for fraud, we have to use our skepticism and make sure that we're challenging things. So we do identify and assess the risk of where the material misstatement would be, and that's where we focus the most of our audit efforts, those areas of highest risk. We do obtain an understanding of your internal controls. We don't have to audit them, but we do have to understand them so we know how the financial data was accumulated. Then we have to look at your accounting policies to make sure that they're appropriate in the circumstances and they follow the Public Sector Accounting Standards framework. We also have to conclude on management's assessment of your going concern. So they make their assessment, we review it and make sure that we concur with it. And then we evaluate the overall presentation of the financial statements. And then we also have to make sure that we obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding the financial informations of the entities or businesses that are included in your consolidated statements. So all those organizations that I said at the beginning that we bring together in your one statement, we have to be confident that we have enough information to be able to say that the information included in yours is appropriate as well. So at the end of the day, that is our new audit report, and it is a clean audit opinion. Page 3 is management's responsibility page, so I'm not going to go over it, but that is standard in the Public Sector Accounting Standards. It's a requirement that management actually comes out and takes responsibility for the financial statements. So you can see that that is signed by the warden and the CAO. Okay. So page 4 We call it the Consolidated Statement of Operations. So these are your revenues and your expenditures for the year. You can see that there are 3 columns: the budget, the actual for 2019, and a comparison of 2018 as well. Again, remembering that it's brought together all of those organizations that we talked about. So from the revenue perspective, your original budget was $10,713,750. And again, each one of those controlled entities has their own budget, so that gets added together as well. And your actual results for the year are $10,758,198. So very, very close to your budget. And each one of the organizations that are added together in here as well, they were very close to their budget when it came to a revenue number. So that's a lot closer than we've seen in the past. And in comparison to the prior year, you can see that it was $11,893,113, so it's down about $1.1 million over the prior year. So I'll just talk about a couple of the things that are quite different from the prior year. You can see right in your top line in terms of your taxes, you are a bit ahead of your budget, but also about $330,000 higher than the prior year. So your rate did go up by 1 cent, and as well your assessments, which are done by the Property Valuation Services Corporation, were also higher this year, which causes your revenue number to be higher. But also your deed transfer tax was higher. Deed transfer tax is very hard to budget because you don't know what kind of development might be going on in your community. So it turned out to be higher than your budget this year. So that's why you're a little bit higher than budget. And so then if we just skip down, the next few are quite consistent. But if you look at the unconditional transfers from other governments, your budget was $582,000, and you came in at $626,000, and last year was $1.5 million. And so the biggest decrease in that one line item, and the driving force for why your revenue is lower, is because that was the grant funding for the Dominion Textiles, the costs to tear it down. So that was when we consolidate your statements and we bring in the operations of the Industrial Commission, your other 2 partners also gave $1 million and into that pot. So you get to share in their revenue as well. So that's why you don't have that revenue this year, and you'll see the big decrease over the prior year. The next line item is called the conditional transfers from federal and provincial governments and its agencies. And you can see that you had a budget of $543,000. This year's actual was only $86,000, and last year was $595,000. The biggest driving number in there is your gas tax money. So while you did receive your gas tax money, if you don't use it in the year, it goes into deferred and you save it for future years. So last year you would have used some of your gas tax money, this year you did not. And in your original plan, you probably thought you were going to do some projects that you would have been using your gas tax money, but that didn't actually come to light. The next item is interest. So you can see that your budget was $213,000, but your actual is $453,000, and last year was $424,000. Your budget, you don't actually budget for the interest that's earned within your reserves. That budget number is for the cash that's in your operations. So your reserves also have a significant amount of cash in them, so they're earning money. And so you can see that it has grown over the prior year, which is great. That's another source of revenue stream. So, and that's earning you about 3%. So those are the biggest changes over the prior year. Why the number has decreased over the from the prior year. The 1.1 million is basically the money for the grant for the Domtex demolitions. In terms of the expenses, you can see that the original budget was set at $10,342,849. You came in at $9,633,000, so you're about $700,000 lower than your lower than your budget. And the prior year was $11,989,000. So you're down about $2.3 million from the prior year. So you can see that there's a couple areas where there's changes. The first one is general government services. So you're under your budget and you're under your prior year as well. So last year you had some retirements that happened. So you would have had a retirement payout, and your budget actually included the cash flow to make those payments, which only occur in the future. But it was already set up as a payable last year. So the cash flow occurred this year, but the expense happened last year. In terms of transportation services, you can see that the expenses are down by about $155,000 over the prior year. One of the couple of the things that are in there is the actual airport operations. So the airport expenses this year were quite a bit lower than the prior year. Last year they had a lot of expenses with regards to the maintenance of the airport, the air stretches.
Yeah.
And so this year the repairs on those were a lot less than they were last year. So that's part of the reason. In terms of the budget number, in comparison to where you ended up for that one, you're under budget, but you had budgeted to do an engineering study, which didn't actually happen this year. So that's why your budget looks a little bit higher as well. And then if we just skip down to the next couple, the environmental development services, last year was $2,905,000. This year it's only $964,000, which is very close to your budget. And so last year, $2 million of that expense was the Domtex demolition. So really, the only big changes from year to year are the revenue from your Domtex and the expense related, and the net of that is a $1 million, because you had a grant of $1 million and $2 million in expenses, so your net difference is $1 million. And we can see that right in your annual surplus line. So your budget was for $370,000, but you ended up at $1.1 million. And last year had a small loss of $95,000. So the swing really from last year to this year is that net $1 million, which in regards to the Domtex facility. So at the end of the day, you did have a small gain on disposal of capital assets as well. Your annual surplus for the year is $1,216,000. And so you had an accumulated surplus balance at the end of last year, $29,347,000. We add in the surplus for this year. And at the end of the year for 2019, you have an accumulated surplus of $30,563,670. And so if we turn right over to the next page, you'll see that number also on the bottom, which is your statement of financial position or your balance sheet. So these are your assets and liabilities. And while 30 million seems like a lot to have in surplus, you really have 25 million of that 30 million is invested in all of your infrastructure that you have that provides your services to your residents. So all the buildings, all the equipment, all the services that you provide, 25 million of that 30 million is invested in these buildings and stuff that we're using now. So in terms of looking at your statement of financial position, your financial assets are at the top. So those are items that are readily convertible to cash. They're segregated from non-financial assets, which are below the line for right now, because you're not going to go and sell any of these assets that you own in order to generate cash to pay your bills. They're all there to provide your services in the future. So you can see in terms of your financial assets, last year they were $12,874,000, and this year they're $13,786,000. So they have grown over the prior year. And you can see that you do have a large balance in cash, but more than half of that cash is in your reserves, and that's money that you've set aside over the past number of years to provide for future capital projects. So a significant portion of what's in your cash is designated and set aside in your reserves for future use. In terms of the financial liabilities, you can see there is a breakdown there. But last year they were $7,821,000. This year they're $7,260,000. So they're down about $600,000 over the prior year. And so there wasn't any new debt issued during the year. You'll see when we look at the tangible capital assets, you did spend well over $1 million buying new assets, sidewalks, public works equipment, and you took out no new debt in order to facilitate that. So you use the money that were already in your reserves to pay for your capital additions. And none of the entities that you're participating in that we've consolidated here have any external debt. They all have a net asset position as well. They don't have any debt. Pardon me. So there weren't any significant, really unusual changes in your liabilities either. You can see that the middle item, which is called deferred revenue, it is growing. It is $2.1 million this year. It was 1.6. That's where your gas tax money is. So it comes in the door. If you don't have a project that you're working on right now that you spend that money on, it gets set aside to be used for your future projects. And you do have your capital investment plan that you have in terms of where you're going to spend that money into the future. And so the money is being saved and set aside in order to facilitate those projects in the future. So at the end of the day, you have a net financial asset position of $6,526,000. So it has grown a little bit, let's say 1.5 million over the prior year. And a lot of that really comes back to the page that we looked at before. You actually generated a surplus in your operations last year. So then you have your tangible capital assets, the $23,938,000. And as I said, you spent $1 million this year in terms of sidewalks, building repairs, public works, et cetera. And then you have a small amount of inventory and prepaid expenses. That totals your total non-financial assets of $24,036,769. Again, at the end of the day, your accumulated surplus is $30,563,670. So the rest are supporting schedules and notes, which I did go over with your audit committee in detail, so there weren't any particular notes that I was going to point out. I will tell you that there were no changes in your own internal accounting policies this year, so there are no changes in terms of presentation of your financial statements, and the notes will be consistent year to year. There was one new section that came out from the Canadian Standard Setters, which is called restructuring transactions, which you were inclined to adopt this year. It didn't have any impact at all on your financial statements this year. And what the section is for amalgamations. So there have been lots of amalgamations that have gone on in Nova Scotia in the past number of years. There wasn't actually a section in the public sector framework to give them any guidance on how to account for that. So they had to look to other frameworks to do it. So now we have our own standard, which is set in place, and here's the rules and regulations. If you do an amalgamation with another entity, here's how you account for that. So that's in place now for future years if that ever happens. So that's my presentation. I do want to say thank you to your staff. They were very helpful and cooperative while we were here doing the audit. I was available to find the documentation that we needed, and they were able to find everything that we asked for.
That would have been a question I would have asked, if staff was cooperative. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham.
That was very, very informative. The only thing I would ask you to do, Gloria, is maybe talk, because we're on film and lots of people watch online, is maybe talk about sort of defining the, not looking for tangible, I've lost my.
What kind of capital assets you had?
No,
sorry.
No, not looking for tangible capital assets. I'm looking for, oh my gosh, I think it's contagious. There's a contagion going around with the, no, it's talking about, I'm looking for the word that describes the amount of money that we look at that, you note that you drill down when you're looking at all the statements. Materiality.
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
Yes, maybe talk about the dollar amount that you use for materiality.
Okay,
So
yep.
I'm guessing
Sure.
it's around $30,000 or $40,000, but I'm not sure, so the public can hear that.
Okay, so every organization has a different materiality number, so there are different benchmarks that are available. But in most nonprofit organizations and in government organizations, we tend to use a percentage of your revenue number, and it ranges anywhere from 1% to 3% of your revenue. And it depends on how many journal entries have we found in the past, what kinds of things have we encountered in terms of risk associated with your organization. So in actual fact, yours is probably about $100,000, right? But you're talking $10 million in revenue, right? So and $30 million in surplus. So and really all that does is it calculates all our sample sizes for us. Obviously, we would ask you to make changes if there was things less than that, and we look for amounts lower than that, but that drives all of our sample calculations.
Was there any further questions of council? I guess I'll ask the question of the CAO. Is there anything else that council has to do with this at this time, other than authorize for you and I to sign the?
An approval would be great.
Okay. So a motion to approve would be greatly appreciated if you so feel. Go ahead, Councillor.
I'll move that the Municipality District of Yarmouth approves the consolidated financial statements as circulated.
Been moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Cushion. Was there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, are you ready for the question? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Gloria. And I only have one quick question. Our Director of Finance, he's pretty easy to get along with?
Oh, was he easy to get along? That was terrible.
Yes.
All your staff
To Greg and Victoria, thank you very much on behalf of residents. Appreciate it. Next agenda item is item number under Number 8, business arising, 8.1 filming policy F-046-19. What is, I think we just have to do a motion to approve. Go ahead, Councillor Durkee.
I'll make a motion to approve the filming policy F-046-19.
Been moved by Councillor Durkee. Do we have a seconder? Been seconded by Councillor Allen. Was there any further discussion on that? Hearing none. All in favor, oh, I'm sorry. Apologize. Go ahead, Councillor Durkee.
Sorry, yes, I'm fine with the policy. What I'd like to recommend, though, is for the actual filming guidelines, and maybe this has been done, I'm not sure, but I would like to recommend that we forward this to Film Nova Scotia, or Screen Nova Scotia. I'm brain
Yes.
farting here all over the place. Because they have a whole, Melanie Solomon, they have a whole locations department, and I think it might be wise to have them approve this, because they would be seeing the policies from across Nova Scotia. Just a recommendation.
Is that something that we can be done? I mean, that's,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, Screen Nova
Okay.
Scotia.
Okay.
Thank you.
So were you making that a motion that it's forward there, or you were including that with?
Well, no, because I think we can, correct me if I'm wrong, but can we not keep the two? One is the policy, and are the guidelines separate from the policy, or is that all one?
so the policy speaks to the guidelines, so if you approve the policy tonight, you're approving the guidelines that were presented with the policy. Moving forward, if the guidelines were to be changed, we would have to bring the guidelines back to council for approval.
So then how do I fix that one?
What's the exact wording of the motion?
It's to,
If the mover and the seconder are agreeable, we could add "and associated guidelines as presented," regulations as presented. Or
Okay,
were you
but-
wanting to do them separately?
well, that's what I was wondering, if we would do them separately, then we could approve the policy, and then the guidelines would be a separate piece. But if you want them together, then I guess the motion would be that I might have to change that. Then I guess I'm not recommending the film policy be adopted at this time until such time as Screen Nova Scotia reviews our guidelines. Throwing that out there.
So that would be a change in the protocol, so we would just need a motion of council to direct me to submit to Screen Nova Scotia's approval process, which legislatively we're not required to do, but I think it's because of a professional opinion, a sector-based expertise.
It is.
Yep.
That's it. I just thought, let's, they're the ones that are going to be sending people down here to look at locations. That's where a lot of it comes from. All movies that come are all in touch with Screen Nova Scotia. So, yes. So then, do I withdraw my motion? Do I?
That's a
How does that
fairly
happen?
significant piece of work, so if council wants that to happen, it may be prudent to just withdraw the motion for now.
Okay.
And wait till we get feedback.
From Screen Nova
Okay, so
Scotia?
I will withdraw my motion.
And the seconder, I think, has to
And
agree.
I need the seconder to,
Do you
not sure
agree?
who agreed that?
To withdraw?
Thank you.
Okay.
And then I'll make the motion to direct staff to forward our filming guidelines to Screen Nova Scotia for their approval.
Approval or review and
Review.
comment?
Review and comment, thank you. Yes, they don't need to approve. Yes.
Okay. So it's been moved by Councillor Durkee. Do we have a seconder? I'll second that. Okay, also seconded by Councillor Allen. Was there any further discussion? Do you all understand we're not approving the film policy. We are going to be sending our film policy off to Screen Nova Scotia for their input, I'll say, on the.
Yes.
Is that, no? We're all good with that? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. You ready for the question? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Okay, thank you. 8.2, Doctor Recruitment and Retention Committee request. You have that in your package. It's Was there any comments or anything that council wishes to? If you have any questions, we can direct them. Oh, God, I guess there is questions, sorry. Deputy Warden, you have the floor.
No, there's no questions on this, but I'm going to make a motion to get it on the floor. So I'm going to make a motion that council accepts the Doctor Recruitment and Retention Committee motion
Request.
that the, where is it? I'm trying to read it here.
The committee, yeah,
That the committee can make decisions
non-financial.
non-financial in the future.
Yeah. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Do we have a seconder for discussion? Okay, moved by Deputy Warden Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Durkee. The floor is open. Any questions or concerns from council? Deputy Warden, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think this is a good idea, especially when it concerns non-financial decisions. I don't want to be the big brother or the overseeing eyes on things like that. There's a lot of things that's got to get done pretty quickly, and we have had very good reports from Councillor Patty Durkee that's been sitting on that committee, and I have full faith in the committee that they'll do the Municipality District of Yarmouth well in this. Like I said, I don't want to be the eyes and ears overseeing or micromanage this committee, because there's a lot of work going on there, and there's a heck of a lot of issues that are out there in regards to doctor recruitment and retention, that's for sure. So that's my comment.
Councillor Cunningham.
I would agree. Having said that, there was quite a conversation at the Committee of the Whole, as I recall, about the meaning of non-financial, and that was kind of also tantamount to really significant things like operational type stuff. No, but I'm not certain. Perhaps our CAO could refresh all of our collective memories about what was discussed at Committee of the Whole precisely.
Oh, boy.
We had quite a conversation about this, and generally we agreed with it, but there were some caveats, as I remember.
So generally speaking, and I'm going to rely on Councillor Durkee to help fill in too, the spirit of the initiative is that correspondence to advocate and lobby really the committee should have the authority and the freedom to do that. That's what we struck the committee for. But that anything financial or anything that would be particularly politically sensitive or something like that, the committee would work with the councils and the other agencies that sit at the board to make sure everybody's aligned before anything is communicated. So I think at the end of the day, we kind of arrived there that the spirit is to, because right now the committee has been bringing every piece of correspondence to the councils for approval. And that's just really slowing down progress, yeah.
Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you. I think that's a good summary. That's what I essentially recall, but I knew there was a little bit more to it than that, but I agree that this is a good way to sort of hasten the process and allow them to do their work. Certainly, we don't need to see all those pieces of correspondence for sure, so thank you.
So they're asking for that they can make. Do we have to make a motion, or?
There's a motion on the floor, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay, I apologize. Looking at other things. Hey, you ready for the question? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you very much. Sorry, 7.3, this is an easy one. Update on rural internet. CAO Brooks. It's an easy one. We don't have any, so you carry on from there.
As I shared at Committee of the Whole, there was a meeting with our municipal partners who are working collectively with the Western Regional Enterprise Network and working with an internet service provider. We did submit an RFP to Develop Nova Scotia. And so the meeting that we had last week was around asking the wardens of the municipalities involved to sign correspondence to address some concerns we have over the relationship issue between Develop Nova Scotia and the Western Regional Enterprise Network. So that correspondence has been written. It's council's #1 strategic priority is rural internet. So the correspondence was written, our warden has signed it, it's gone off to the Western Wren, and it has been submitted. They'll be sending the letter to the CEO of Develop Nova Scotia and the board chair, just requesting a reaffirmation of the relationship and to make sure lines of communication stay open.
Is there any questions or concern from my Deputy Warden?
As always, I'm not happy with the answer that I got, but thank you very much, Madam CAO, for that update. From my understanding, the timeline from Develop Nova Scotia was to make an announcement by now on who they were going to start, or what they were going to start to work on. This process, as always, is dragging its feet. It's as soon as we can get the MLA in here, I think we really should have a talk, or a representative from Develop Nova Scotia or whatever. It's just dragging on and on and on and on. I'll give you a little update on the situation, and I don't live all that far outside of town. Lately, I've been having trouble. My internet comes over the cellular network, and lately, for whatever reason, I cannot use my, what they call a mobile hub or a hotspot that I use. In other words, it just uses the cellular internet, or it could use your phone as a mobile hotspot. But I have a separate unit that hauls in a little stronger satellite or internet signal off the cell towers. Over the past week, that system has not been working. I cannot get my council agendas or make any phone calls or make any appointments or anything like that. And the reason why I keep bringing up cell and internet services is a lot of people rely on cellular service as their internet. I have quite a large data plan on my phone. By the way, the municipality does not pay for it. I personally pay for it, and that's how I get my home internet. So I'm not happy. Me, like a lot of others out in rural Nova Scotia, especially out in my district, have very limited access to any sort of internet. And it's not boding well. It's going to be an election issue until this is fixed. So every time that I get the opportunity to speak, that I'm not happy with the answer. I know that the municipality district of Yarmouth is trying. I'm also thinking about possibly putting something on the table come our next budget deliberations about us doing it ourselves. There's other municipalities out there that's doing it themselves. They've had some success. Maybe at the next committee of the whole meeting, maybe we'll talk about that, on who we can get a hold of to possibly speak about that. If I'm not mistaken, there's a couple municipalities up in the valley that have their own internet service. So whether that expands the current system that we own out in the Forest Glen, maybe that's what we're going to have to look at. But I'll be pushing, I know that. Whether my other councillors agree or not, we'll have to hash that out in budget deliberations. But time is of the essence. Every day that we're behind on internet service is one giant step backward we're all taking for rural Nova Scotia.
Councillor Durkee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to save this for the Wren report, but I might as well dip in here. Of course, the Wren has been working on this for a long time, and they keep coming up with plans. And the issue, part of the issue is that there seems to be some divide on what we've been doing and what Develop is doing. And part of that is that the information that Develop has is different from the information we have or any of the internet service providers. One of the big concerns is that, and we've talked about that here, is that we're going to have little pieces of this service all over the place instead of some consistent rollout. So we have the federal government that's giving out money, and the provincial government is working on this, but who is getting what? So, you know, so once they pick an internet service provider to go ahead and do this, then the discussion we had was that you know, where's the money coming from? Is it coming from the province? Is it coming from the federal government? Is what the federal government doing aligning with what Develop Nova Scotia is doing? So we've come to a point where Develop isn't necessarily on the same plan as we are, and that was the briefing that we received recently from REN that says, okay, guys, we need to get together here and let the REN, or let Develop know that this isn't working out the way we expected to, and have them come back. Again, I believe, I hope this is public, but I believe so, that the rollout was supposed to be 1,900 homes at the beginning, and short term, and then more in the long term. And it's like 1,900 for us is nothing. And so again, the same problem is this just is not happening fast enough. And we're not sure at this point how to make it go faster. I mean, there's so many different levels of people involved in it. It's very difficult. That being said, we haven't stopped. The municipality is still working with the REN. The REN is still working really hard. I feel bad for Evan, who has been doing this for how many years now? 4. And what do we see? Like, what we've done is the little projects that we've done, and nothing has happened since. So, and the Connect to Innovate program at the federal government, some people are just getting their answers now, and that's been a few years already. So again, does that, if they get approval now, well, we've already done something else. Like, so there continues to be issues. The good news is for us is that, you know, we've come together. The REN has asked for a letter to go to Develop to say, okay, we need to fix this, and see what comes back.
Okay. Any discussion? Councillor Allen.
Well, I guess I may as well throw in here as well. I have some residents that are in the same situation as Councillor Cunningham, and I guess we're sending a letter to the REN. Should we be copying our MLA? Should we be inviting our MLA and maybe our new MP in here? This is just dragging on. We're behind the times now, and every day, as Councillor Cunningham said, we're falling farther behind the times. New technologies are coming out, and we can't get the technologies of yesterday. And it's pretty frustrating when parents are calling because their kids can't do their homework, and you know, there's no access. You want to apply for jobs nowadays, everything's online. If you want to apply for college, it's online. I think our MLA should be in here explaining why it isn't easier to access this money, or what we have to do to access this money, because it's developed, seems to me like we're falling on deaf ears, and it's just dragging.
Sorry. Deputy Warden?
I'd like to move this issue back to our committee of the whole so we can discuss a plan forward. Our next committee of the whole is going to be the second Wednesday of November. So I think maybe that if it's all right with the rest of you, that we should bring this back to our committee of the whole and discuss a plan to go forward, whether that would be discussing this issue with our MLA, whether that be discussing this issue with the new MP, or whether they'd be sending out a letter to have someone from Develop Nova Scotia come here and ask us, so we can ask them what is going on here. Because if I remember correctly, the timeline that was presented to us a couple years ago was that they were supposed to be announcing stuff by the fall of 2019. Well, it's almost the winter of 2019, and we haven't heard anything yet. So I think maybe if it's acceptable to the rest of the councilors, we bring this issue back to our next committee of the whole meeting and develop a plan to move forward. And that's not a pun that I intended to use, but I would like us to do that. We should be on top of this as much and as often as we can to develop at least a strategy to start asking pointed questions, because we're like a truck stuck in the mud. We're spinning our wheels and going nowhere.
Councillor Durkee?
Mr. Chair, or to our CAO, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in that letter that our MLA it was being forwarded to, do you recall?
So the letter is being addressed to the CEO and the Chair of Develop Nova Scotia, carbon copy to the MLAs in our region. Now, we have talked about a Plan B strategy. So the Internet Trust money rests with 3 trustees, and they make the decision on how to spend the money. Develop Nova Scotia is responsible for the process, the procurement process, and they make recommendations to the trustees. So our hope is that we can realign with Develop Nova Scotia, strengthen our relationship with them, make sure they understand the risks we see with what could be happening. If that doesn't work, then at the end of the day, the money is with the trustees, and it's possible we'll have to communicate directly with them.
Thank you.
Councillor Cushion?
Well, it certainly sounds like the wheel has a lot of spokes in it. I think probably it wouldn't hurt also to have our new MP be updated on what's going on, where the federal funds are and whatnot, just to get him updated on the problems that we're having. And it's really, really, really discouraging. I mean, I have internet, I have satellite internet, but still, it's, you know, it's better than what some of you, some of the others that you have, right? But it's pretty discouraging.
Councillor Cunningham?
I would think that our current MP, future MP, and our MLA are quite aware of the issue. I can't imagine that they're not. It's that they're departments that are providing the money. So I agree with Councillor John Cunningham that we should probably move it back to the committee of the whole. But I mean, if we're going to discuss it, I think we need to. When we discuss it, I think people need to think and have a productive way forward. That they know about the issue, so I don't know what more we can do. We're not holding the purse strings. We know there's a tremendous lag in getting this service out. It's almost non-existent, and the REN's been working on it. They have paid staff to work on it. They have not been able to make much. Despite their best efforts, my understanding, they haven't been able to make much progress on the file. So I think that whatever comes to the committee of the whole needs to come in a developed state. I don't know how much I don't disagree that putting on the agenda is worthwhile and talking about it is worthwhile because it's an important issue. But we're going to have something concrete to talk about. Maybe staff can look at maybe some next steps, maybe share a briefing, and I don't know if they have any answers. I mean, we're talking about this issue, but we're going around and around and around. It's not. It's our people are asking us, well, what about it? But beyond providing some funding that we have for the Carlton Tower, which was good, that's a small scale solution, community-based solution. We provided some dollars there, and you know, where there's opportunities to jointly fund, but beyond that, I'm not just certain what we're going to talk about at the committee of the whole. And maybe somebody can inform me. And I think it's important to put it there as a standing item, maybe even. But maybe we'll know more in a couple weeks' time. I'm not certain.
I think to have it as a standing item is a good idea. I don't know if there's any direction that you'd like to give staff on requesting a meeting with Develop Nova Scotia, but if they were going to have a meeting, it would have to be a meeting with Barrington, ourselves, Argyle, Clare and Digby. It would have to be a joint meeting, or I assumed, I don't know if, and I guess I'll direct my question or concern towards the CAO, could they or would they, is there something that the municipality in the big plan that we should talk to them about, just our own municipality? Or I don't want to venture from the big plan, but if there's an integral part? Should we meet with them on a,
We have a playbook. So the municipality of Yarmouth has met with Develop Nova Scotia on Modi-specific issues. We've talked about the port, we've talked
Yeah.
about Cape Forshue. They are aware of our 6 strategic priorities. So, and that was with the CEO and some of the members of her planning team. So I think that that's done. They have hard copies they know. And you know, they probably had 50 other meetings just like that. When it comes to rural internet, our playbook is to create a compelling value proposition based on a region-wide strategy. And so if we're going to use the time of the board chair and the CEO and maybe trustees, it should be collectively under our strategy that we've developed with our partners at the Western Wren. It's going to be, see, the project is all being evaluated against outcomes. So 95% of Nova Scotians with, what are the speeds? 50 up and something down. I don't even know what they are right now. So those metrics are driving the awards. So when you have a strong region with a plan to deliver services by a private sector participant that reaches certain goals in that region, that helps the province succeed better. If we start to splinter off and go on our own, it's going to be hard to be heard in the noise. The biggest thing, and this is to the Deputy Warden's point, the biggest thing is to make sure we're still talking. If Develop Nova Scotia is running into roadblocks that's preventing them from making the awards and flowing the dollars, we just want to know. We just want to be debriefed. We've spent a lot of time and money playing by the rules and following the process. And we want to have open lines of communication so that we can support the work and so that we can have a sense of comfort that we're being heard.
okay, thank you. So I take it we're moving on. S- 8.4, for your information, letter from the Nova Scotia Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal per the provincial airport strategy. You have that in your package. I won't say it is a form letter from some bureaucrats to us, but it is a letter. So was there any question? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Cunningham.
Right, I mean, just to sort of summarize the content of the letter and provide a little narrative around this topic, the NSFM, Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, President Way Mason's he called for the development of provincial airport strategy. We supported that call by motion through a letter of support, and this is the return letter from Department of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal Policy and Planning. And I'll just summarize it by reading the last paragraph. It's not long. Of course, we welcome any input the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities has on this issue. So that's about certainly about the airport, a provincial airport plan. However, Transportation Infrastructure Renewal is not currently considering a broader provincial airport study or strategy. Having said this, I guess the impetus behind us sending a letter of support was that we have an airport, was an international airport, had a flight, regularly scheduled flight to Boston, and then, you know, relatively recently to Halifax and into Portland, Maine. Having said that, it does have a lot of touches, 1,500 per year, responsible for medical flights to the hospital in bad weather, for our fishing community and others. A lot of business people do land, and a lot of private planes land and take off. So it is a going concern. There is, having said that, a huge capital requirement there. The infrastructure is old, and we know it's you know, depreciating all the time. So having said that, you know, I am a little disappointed that, you know, there's not sort of not kind of the will to undertake a broader provincial airport study to see how we may fit into the Nova Scotia aviation context with Stanfield. But I think moving forward, we might, as the 3 units, explore that a little bit more and get in touch with the people at Stanfield International and see how we might partner with them to maybe bring some business to the airport and make it more of a going concern. So I'll leave my comments at that. Disappointed in the letter, and think we need some more help from the province and feds. 3 municipalities are running the airport. It's a huge challenge for us to keep that facility up and operating to the extent that it really should be and deserves to operate.
Thank you. Was there any other, oh, sorry. Councillor, question?
Again, I'm disappointed with the letter also, as Councillor Cunny had mentioned. Again, this is only my first time as councillor, but from what I've heard over the last 20 years plus, it's been the same darn thing that, you know, we got to get the provincial government and federal government involved in helping us out. They never ever have. What makes you think we're going to be doing it in the future? I don't know how you guys put up with it for over 20 years, but anyway, we have to make some type of decision.
Any more discussion on that item? Hearing none. Item 7.5. You all have in front of you the candidate's response from Southwest Nova, the last federal election that was held Monday. And we all know the outcome of that. So for you was their questions and we had for them and their answers. If there's any response in that regards, Councillor Trevor Cunningham.
Right, I know our that only happens when I'm on the mic, doesn't it? No. In any event, no, I think I mean our new MP hasn't been sworn in yet. I think that happens sometime in November, but I think we should plan maybe in the spring, once he gets his feet on the ground, maybe making him aware that we'd like to meet with him around the FCM priorities and some of our municipal priorities, just to make him aware of where we are with our priorities and so forth, because again, that's important that he knows the lay of the land where it concerns our municipal needs and the region's municipal needs. I'm sure he's quite familiar, but never hurts to have the conversation. So perhaps we could forward that for more of a conversation to the next committee of the whole.
Thank you very much.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could just jump in, is that the consensus of council that you would like to have that on the committee of the whole agenda?
Sure. Yeah. If I was sitting over there, I'd say yes too. Thank you very much, councillors. Moving on to item number 9, actually, because we changed all the numbers. Item 9.1, September Development Report. You all have that in front of you in your package. Is there any questions or comments? Councillor Trevor Cunningham.
I'll move that we receive the September Development Report.
A motion on the floor. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Danny Allen. Any discussion on the motion? Question being called on the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Motion carried. I relinquish the chair to the warden. I took your pen.
I have others. 9.2 CAO report. You have that in your package. Is there questions that you wish to direct to the, or was there anything that the CAO wished to highlight in her report? Hearing no questions, we'll move on to 9. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a comment about the CAO's report. I find that a lot of the information that we're receiving seems to be the same from one report to the next, month after month. I'm just wondering if council would consider that we ask for the CAO's report once quarterly, so 4 times a year. The report seems to be very long and
It is.
and there's action items in there, and not a lot of it changes in there at times.
And that's largely due to the interval between the reports. So a lot of the work we do is complex work, and it takes longer than 30 days to do it. So you may see more variation from report to report if you only get it quarterly.
Okay. Councillor Cunningham.
I hear what Councillor John Cunningham is saying. Having said that, I think it's a good practice to report monthly. If the items are in there multiple times, that's okay by me, and we can certainly, but it gives us the ability to speak to all those important, and is our CAOs indicated, those are big complex files that should not fall off our radar. They should be there every month listed, and I don't think it's any extra work for the CAO. It's just a matter of keeping them on the report until they fall off. They may never fall off, but I think it's important to have a record every month that we've had the ability to discuss any and all those important projects. And certainly, I mean, to the Deputy Warden's point, I mean, if there was sort of a highlighted section talking about the changes month to month, that may be a solution to the issue too. But in any event, those are my comments.
Councillor Cushion.
I have to agree with Deputy Warden Cunningham that I think quarterly would be a much more productive way of reviewing the CAO report, because we get it every month. We're looking at the same thing, and say the odd one will change as it's completed, but I think quarterly would be fine. That's my opinion.
Councillor Durkee.
Thank you. My opinion is to keep it as is, because there are things on it that we may need to discuss, and if we don't know, then we can't bring it up. So, which brings me to, for example, an addition to this is the key projects underway, the accessibility mats, the Port Maitland Beach. I'd like to request that we put it on the next committee of the whole meeting for a discussion.
That's the mats.
Yes.
Okay. So, okay, I guess the direction is you have 2 that think it should be quarterly, and 2 that think that it should be monthly. So I guess, Daniel, that leaves you and I to make either the tie or break it.
We could always discuss this in the next meeting.
I was going to say, I think, between yourselves, I think if I sit down and have a discussion with the CAO, maybe we can end up by changing the format and breaking it down, maybe not getting into the details and so on, but just, I call it point blank wording or something, or maybe I should ask your opinion onto it. I mean, do you think it should be quarterly, or are you still comfortable with monthly, or do you think the format could change a little bit and, I'll say, shorten up the report? Is there any?
I think the important thing is that it's useful to the reader. So the interval, if it's useful and the interval is 30 days, that's fine. If the redundancy makes anybody uncomfortable, we can talk about that. I am a continuous improvement person. I always think that depending on how we're using a tool, we may want to modify it, change the format. So it could be that at the very beginning of the report, where I give that brief summary, I actually focus on anything that's new or different in the report.
Yes.
it could be that, that makes it more useful, and maybe easier for the reader to digest the material. It's as long this month, 4 times a year, because that's the quarterly report that provides the financials and the strategic item register update. So it's not always as long as what it is this month, but it is that long quarterly, because those are the intervals on those items. So it's however the report can be useful to council and to the members of the public who read it, it's fine. To shorten it would be difficult. When you think about the work we're involved in, I feel like it's as brief as I dare to make it, because I think we would lose something for the benefit of the reader if we got much more brief.
Okay, so let's, at this time, oh, I'm sorry. Deputy Warden, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. It wasn't so much about the length of the report, and I'm not complaining about that, because information is always good. Like, there's some things in here, like the action item register, Appendix C, in regards to our strategic action items and stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff in there that is redundant as far as I'm concerned, because some of these projects are very large. Like, I'll just pull one out of my hat, Solar Gardens. That's not something that we're going to be moving on anytime soon that I can see. Strategic items, there's a lot of good information on that, like, and of course in here there's some that are complete, some that are ongoing, council motions and stuff. That, to me personally, the motions that we've made, whether it be this council session or previous ones, those ones are quite interesting to me, and that's the reason why I was thinking that maybe it could be shortened, in not necessarily the report being shortened, but the report interval. But that's something that maybe we can discuss in committee of the whole. Maybe I'm off base. It seems to be quite a long discussion over CAO's report about the length of it, but that's not what I'm after. But really, this is not the time to talk about it here, because that's CAO's report. And I guess my question to you, Mr. Chair, is do we need a motion to accept this report as circulated?
We do. Yeah,
Then, Mr. Chair, I'm going to put a motion on the floor to accept CAO's report as circulated.
Okay. Been moved by the Deputy Warden, seconded by Councillor Allen. Is there any further discussion on that motion? Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. 9.3, Remembrance Day services and the laying of the wreaths. 9.3.1, Mariner Center, November 11th. I'm sorry, Councillor Durkee.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that the Port Maitland accessibility mats would be on the next committee of the whole meeting. Do I have to make a motion to do that? Can we just make sure that we discuss that at the next meeting?
The information came forward, the other day?
Well, motion or consensus of council to put it on, one or the other, yeah.
I think
Well,
just
I'll make a
consensus.
motion then to put the Port Maitland accessibility mats on the committee, next committee, the whole meeting for discussion.
Been moved by Councillor Durkee. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Allen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, back into the Remembrance Day, Mariner Center, November 11th.
Sorry, while I'm on and have this, the Port Maitland Remembrance Day services are usually on the 11th, and it's held at the school, not the cenotaph.
Okay.
And I don't know the exact time yet.
Okay. So I guess what we're looking for is commitments to do, you'll do Mariner Center? Okay. Liz, you're tracking these, are you? Okay, Councillor Cushion is Mariner Center. Carlton Cenotaph. Deputy Warden. Port Maitland Cenotaph or the school, are you? Okay, yes, Councillor Durkee. Now here comes the hard one. Plymouth School, November 5th, 1 o'clock. For those that aren't going away to the fall conference is...
That's the NSFM.
Yeah, the fall conference. So I'm going. Lauren's going, so then Patty's going. Go ahead, Counselor.
I am actually, I'm not going to the fall conference, unfortunately, but I am away from November 2nd to the 10th.
Yeah. I'm going to ask, on the Plymouth School, we've always seemed to have had a difficult time to do the Plymouth School and so on.
I can run out there and do it at it's 1 o'clock, November 5th.
That's what they have here, yes.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Do you have contact people or named phone numbers that Councillor Cunningham could have just to verify the times and et cetera?
Excuse me, yes, I've already verified.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Maple Grove School, November 6th. And Daniel's away, and Councillor Cushion and myself and Councillor Durkee are away. I don't know if Councillor or the Deputy Warden or Trevor, you're away? You're away? Yeah. So go ahead.
Mr. Warden, our Director of Recreation has a very good relationship with Maple Grove School. Maybe if Frank is, he's away, that's right, he's away, that's right. It's possible Mark is out in the community, our Economic Development Officer. If he's
Okay.
around, he may be willing to do it on behalf of council.
Okay, that's acceptable, okay. South Ohio, November 10th.
Do we know if Councilor Long is around for any of these dates?
He never left any notes for me.
Is he part of NSFM though? Is he going away to
I don't
Thank-
know if Councillor LeBlanc is going to NSFM or not. What I could do is, on the 6th, if Councillor LeBlanc is available, then we'll just tap him for that. If not, we'll ask if Mark can do it.
Okay. In the same, well, South Ohio, if he's around, I'm quite sure he's going to be there. If I'm back and everything, I would try to go to that one. I would try to go to that
To
one.
the
Yeah,
South Ohio?
South Ohio. I think it was last year I went, and Gerard, or Councillor LeBlanc was there, didn't recognize me in respect that I was there. He leaned the wreath and when he went. So, yeah.
That's a Sunday, by the way.
Yes, yes it is, yep.
SFM will be over by then.
Yes, yep. Kemp Baptist Church, there's no date. I'm sorry, go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll be attending that one. I believe it's on the 10th, but I
Yeah.
will attend that one
Okay.
if it's not at the same time as the Carlton one, which it has been in previous years at times, so.
Okay. Okay. Okay, in the Yarmouth Cenotaph, November 11th, I would, well, anybody can attend there, but they want to, last year there was, I attended, but there was no wreath. I wasn't.
There will be this year.
Okay, so I'll attend there unless it's snowing or whatever, eh? I don't want to mess up my hair.
If it snows, I'll take your place.
I'm tough. I don't need you to take my place. Okay, that's all been handled. 9.4, NSFM, important update on the cap. Action required. Yes, I'll turn that over. You have that info? I know I have it in my package, but I haven't been briefed.
Yep. So as you know, through the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, we've been working with the province of Nova Scotia to have the cap, which is a limitation on realizing taxable income for municipalities on assessment growth. We've been working with the province to have that removed. Everybody here, I think, is familiar with CAP. CAP basically was a process that was designed to protect property owners from spikes in property value. And the unintended consequences of that have been greater and longer reaching than what people realize. And so there is taxable assessment that municipalities are not realizing in their revenue because of the CAP program. That's a very simplified version of the issue. So it is one of the priorities, resolutions that the NSFM has been working on. And so this letter is actually bringing you up to date on what they've done. And the request is that we echo to the province of Nova Scotia what NSFM is working on. So all of the language that would go in your letter is provided in this email. And basically the ask is that this council correspond with the province supporting the work of the NSFM. So for us, it would be working at the local level. So we would be requesting that the three MLAs who kind of touch our community. So Minister Churchill is the MLA for the District of Yarmouth. But we might also want to speak with Minister LeBlanc on the Argyle side and Minister Wilson on the Clare side to make sure that they're all three aware. I got those names right? It's getting late.
Yes.
LeBlanc, Churchill, and Wilson, right? That's right. Yes, MLA LeBlanc. That's right.
Deputy Warden, go ahead.
This CAP thing for me has been, I've been sort of up in the air and sort of indifferent on this. And one thing that bothers me about this whole thing is, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And one of the things that's in here is a slow phase out. Transition over 13 years. If we're going to do it, do it. I don't know what, I shouldn't say this. I know government's slow, and we've been accused of being slow ourselves, but 13 years?
It's a very long time. It's not what the NSFM asked for in terms of a phase-out period, but it is what we feel the province is willing to accept to move forward and remove it.
Man, I don't know if I'm prepared to number one, make a motion to accept this proposal, or number two, to even vote in favor of it, to tell you the truth.
Well, there's no voting in favor of it on our part. The NSFM board has approved this resolution, and it's gone forward to
Yeah,
government.
but you're asking for, did I hear right that you're asking for a motion to,
To echo these points with the MLAs.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think Councillor Durkee first.
Yeah.
She beat you to the button there.
Since Deputy Warden Cunningham's on the fence, I'll do it. I'll make a motion that we, I believe it's to write a letter to our MLAs to echo the suggestions from, to support the NSFM in moving forward to eliminate the cap. Does that make sense?
That we want, okay, there's been a motion. Do we have a seconder? Is there a seconder for the motion? Is there a seconder for the motion? Is there a seconder for the motion?
I'll second it for discussion.
It has been moved by Councillor Durkee, seconded by Deputy Warden Cunningham. Councillor Cunningham, you have the floor.
I think our MLAs are aware of this issue. They've listened. Ultimately, it's up to them. They know the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities standpoint, and I won't be voting in favor of the measure or writing another letter. It is what it is. They're fully aware of it, and just another piece of correspondence that, I mean, they're aware of the issue, and they'll make the decision on whether or not they're going to continue with the cap. So I'm not in favor of writing a letter. I think it's for them to decide.
So if there's any further discussion? I'll kind of give you what I feel is since I've been here, this has been discussed forever and a day. And it's been discussed quite often at the fall conferences in Halifax or even in Sydney and so on. And I'm going to say in the last year's conference, when the majority gave full support for NSFM to, I think it was our #1 priority, was it not? In resolutions and so on, move forward. And I believe this is the first time that the organization has been able to make, I'll say, some positive headway. And I've been one to always, I'm used to something, why change it? This is what it is, but I realize that the cap sometimes benefited the wrong ratepayer. And the removal of the cap eventually would help, if I'm not mistaken, to even the playing field for all residents of Nova Scotia. And in any time, as I said earlier today, when you use the word tax, people don't like that word, but so you're going to irritate some people who like the cap, and you're going to make people happy that don't like the tax, and it's just gonna, it'll just kind of change. But the province of Nova Scotia, the residents and the municipalities have asked for years and years and years to eliminate the cap. So I think at this time, if it takes 13 years, that's what it'll take. And if that's, you know, that is provincial government working, it's municipal government working, and it's a slow process, but it's been asked for a long, long time. So I'm going to support it at this time. So move forward. So I don't know if there's any further discussion, you folks. So are you ready for the question? The motion was to support. Oh boy, they lit up now. Councillor?
No, I think it was me first. I just, our Madam CAO was about to make a comment. I heard it coming out. So I'd really like to hear what she was going to say. Please.
In order to get the deal done, there's going to be give and take. So the full extent of this ask is, if you read the briefing, it's to strike a committee. So when CAP was brought in, there was all-party agreement on CAP. In order to bring CAP out, the ideal circumstance would be that there would be all-party agreement. So the notion is, rather than ask MLAs to support it, it's to get a subcommittee struck in government to deal with some of these issues in the terms, like a spike protection mechanism, low-income protection mechanism, differential protection, all of these things that are going to have to be dealt with if we phase CAP out. And it's the feeling of the NSFM that in order to get the needle moving even further, as Warden Anthony pointed out, we probably need a subcommittee, not of municipalities, but the province. So there would be implications for Modi. So the cap doesn't have a significant impact on Modi right now. But if you think about the development pressure and the market activity, it could. We have a lot of homes that have been in the possession of the same person for a long time. If money is spent on those homes and those homes or those properties stay in that property owner's name, they would fall under the cap protection. So there's a lot of improvement happening to properties around here. The other issue is that if cap comes off, our low-income tax exemption program will likely have to become more robust. And I don't know what that means. That's language I'm hearing. So a committee process to deal with it might be the best idea, because if the legislation is written outside of a committee process. We don't know how that impact will trickle down to municipalities, in what format it'll come down.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor. Councillor Durkee.
Sorry, it's me first. My understanding with the cap is that there are people who are actually paying more than they're supposed to be, even if they have the cap. And so they want to work this out to make it fair to everybody. And this is what at the bottom of this, the NSFM is asking us to call, email, text your MLA, ask for their support, ask to meet with them when they are back from Halifax this weekend. So it doesn't really matter which political party they belong to. As you had mentioned, it's bringing all political parties on board with this. And they're just asking, if NSFM is asking us to help by sending a letter that we support this, in my opinion, I think we should support NSFM, because I know they've been working a long time on it.
Councillor Cushion.
My problem is make sure that our seniors are going to be protected and the low income protection mechanism is actually in place to, so if correct me if I'm wrong, if the cap is in place in senior who has a large home who wants to sell it and move to a smaller place, then that smaller place could be taxed more than their present home. Is that correct? Is that how that works?
It depends on where that house is, what the market has been, and all those sorts of things. It depends.
So there's a possibility that that senior would have to pay more taxes than they did with the cap.
That's a possibility. There's so many variables in running that analysis. The other side of that argument is that assessment is based on market value, and where there's cap, there are property values that are receiving services at a discounted rate.
It's complicated. Deputy Warden?
That's all fine and dandy. The whole reason for cap being put on is because, say for example, if a senior owned a house on a lake that was a modest home, and all of a sudden this lake was developed and we had many multi-million-dollar homes going up, then that means that his property value of the retiree or the person the original owner of the land, his, back in the day before the cap was there, his assessment would go up. So anyway, he'd end up paying absolutely phenomenally larger tax rate than he would originally if those homes were never built there. And this is such a wide-ranging, big issue. I understand the point that the CAO made that some people are getting a discount, but you got to remember too, when those homes are sold, that the cap is off.
The cap comes off when they're sold, that's right.
So what we're doing is we're penalizing people that's lived somewhere and contributed to communities for years and years and years if the cap comes off. So it's a humongous issue, and I'm personally, I would much rather see some revisions made to the cap rather than the cap being removed or phased out as it says here. The cap has remained the same to my knowledge since it's been introduced, I think about 15 years ago, before I got in politics. To my knowledge, it hasn't been revised any at all. Now maybe the original intent, I know the original intent of the cap. Now maybe they should try to modify it or help it some, because in all reality, I'm real leery of what can happen if the cap is taking off. I know that there will be provisions, and there still hasn't been a lot of discussion on how the municipality could protect the seniors and stuff with developments going up around there, whether it be changing the low income substantially. I don't know how that's going to protect them. Well, this is an awfully big decision, and I'm kind of leery to.
Okay, can I ask the question, Councillor Durkee, if you give me at our committee of the whole, could yourself and Greg give the council an overview on the cap? Our municipality is not, whether we're for or against, is not going to change. CBRM, HRM, Colchester, and East Hants, they are growing areas. They would like to see the cap removed because then the $1 million home is going to be assessed fully at the $1 million value. The cap protected that person. With it gone, the $1 million home is now assessed at that, and the home that the cap was supposed to protect the senior, if I'm not mistaken, will change to help them, would it not? Is that how it?
It's not about seniors.
No,
It's
or I should, yeah.
what CAP is highlighting is the fact that the property taxation system we have in Nova Scotia is regressive. Taxes on real property have nothing to do with the property owner's ability to pay because they're market-driven, they're not income-driven. So this whole dialogue is highlighting the problem with our property taxation system. If you recall, in the summer of 2018, Council did direct me to bring in some training so that we could understand the issues around CAP as of today, the contemporary issues. And I reached out to PVSC and to the CAO at the time in East Hants, who was a leader on the CAP. And the NSFM had just taken this on in the way that they have in this last year. And so all workshops and stuff were to be run through the NSFM. So we never got that training. I would suggest to you, Mr. Warren, that if we do want training, which I think we should have training on the issue at Modi, I think that we probably need to reach externally again on it. If you read everything in here, and of course this is just a memo asking for council to take action. This isn't the draft legislation or anything like that. And it talks about, for example, allowing seniors to stack their programs. See, right now, tax relief for seniors has a maximum threshold. This is talking about allowing them to stack municipal and provincial exemptions. That's not allowed right now. It talks about a low income protection mechanism, differential protection, which would speak to what Deputy Warden Cunningham said. You know, if I've owned a home for 50 years and all of a sudden the lake around me develops, is there going to be a mechanism to protect? It's complex. I don't think there's any easy issues.
Because that's exactly what's happening out in my district.
Yeah. Councillor Durkee, you have the floor.
Thank you. The purpose we're not looking at removing the cap so that low-income people are suffering. I think they're looking for an alternative to a better way to assess properties, and so that low-income people in general, not just seniors.
No, that's, I shouldn't know.
Well, let me just say this. It says, be it resolved, the province work with the municipalities and other stakeholders to phase out the CAP program and provide better alternatives to protect low-income homeowners and those experience significant increases in residential property assessments. And then if you click on, there's a link that takes you to the CAP assessed program. And so I think they're not just saying, oh, you know, we're going to remove it and then so everybody's rates are going to go up. I think they're looking at, by removing it, we're looking at an alternative program so that people, it's the same thing I know years ago in Mahone Bay, people were forced out of their homes because their property taxes went up so high. I don't think that the NSFM wants that to happen, but I think they're looking at alternatives. But as I had suggested and mentioned, my understanding is there are people who are actually paying more in taxes now than they would pay if there was an alternative program in place, and it would. And I also believe I've read something about the fact that it may actually make us allowed to reduce taxes across the board. But what I'd like to do at this point is, I think that we all do need to have a little bit more knowledge about this CAP program, and I would like to table my motion until after we've had some discussion about it.
You can table it or withdraw it.
So we just need a motion to table the motion.
Okay, so you've made a motion
I'd
to
like to
table.
make a motion to table the motion.
Okay, the motion that is on the floor, there is now a motion to table that motion until to a future meeting. So do we have a seconder for tabling the motion?
No debating a tabling of a motion, by the way.
Yeah,
Robert's rules must not be debated.
that's no
Can't-
discussion.
No, just so we're sure, just so we're clear. Yep, okay, okay.
Yeah, you're at that
Yeah.
point. So it's been moved by Councillor Durkee, seconded by Councillor Allen. Question being called. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. Thank you. Moving on. 9.6, letter from the Yarmouth Splash Park. Request for appointment to the committee. You have that in your package. What is the wishes of council? You see that they're trying to move forward. They picked out a couple of sites and so on. Is it the wishes of this council that we have somebody sit on that committee, or do you wish to stay neutral at this time? What is the wishes? Do we all understand what it is? The splash park is,
Did you lose yours too, Councillor Allen?
Yes, I did, yeah.
Mine as well. Mine just went blank.
Are we still broadcasting, Mike?
The internet's gone, like that.
I'm still on.
It says here not connected.
Can you reconnect?
Yeah, believe it or not, yeah, mine says not connected, but I'm still on. I don't know how far I can go, it just says not connected. Connections are available.
Troubleshooting.
Yeah, I'm back, John.
Are you plugged in, John?
Oh, yeah.
I just come back.
Yeah, same here.
So I will say that I was having a conversation with the band manager of AFN today, and we actually spoke about, since Hurricane Dorian, services like wireless service and cell service seem to be spotty and more intermittent. So I'm guessing it's because of the damage that was done to the infrastructure during the hurricane.
Councillor Cushion, you have the floor.
So are they looking for an appointment from a councillor to sit on that, or just one of our, somebody to represent the municipality
sit right
from
there.
staff or something?
That a member of your council be appointed to
Yeah, I
serve
see
on our
that
committee.
too, but can we see if staff instead, or no? Okay.
I need some input from council. This is something, there's been, I'm sorry, Councillor. Go ahead, Councillor Cunningham.
Yeah, I'm kind of two minds on this in a sense. I mean, I hear them, they want somebody, maybe it's somebody they could, rather than being a formal member of the committee, maybe a councillor could act as a point of contact to dig for a little bit of information, that type of thing. Because obviously, if we're a member and then we comes to a vote, that will kind of may remove us from the vote, right? You know, I mean, the option is not perfect there. Whether it's a direct conflict or not, probably I guess it is if you're on the committee. So that's the problem with the councillor being on. But certainly, I mean, I think if we designated somebody, maybe to not formally be on the committee, but I don't know if you could kind of work around that and just say, listen, one of the counselors, maybe a conduit to council to maybe have questions answered, or that, to Councillor Cushing's point, it may be just a municipal employee contact to maybe provide some support in terms of information, not in terms of advocacy, but in terms of information.
Go ahead.
So we actually have been providing some staff support to the Splash Park Committee. So the Director of Recreation helped the committee get organized and form a not-for-profit. He's provided some support at a couple of meetings that they've had. So we have been doing that all along. I'm wondering if before council makes a decision on this, do you feel adequately debriefed about what type of organization is this? Who's on the board now? What does the project look like? What's the budget? What's the timeline? Do you feel like you're properly briefed, or would you like to have a presentation?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion that we put this on we schedule this, or have staff schedule the committee to come in and present at their earliest convenience at a committee of the whole, whether that's the next one or one in the near future.
Deputy Warden, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This question is through you to the CAO. In regards to, did we not just go through a process of some committees councillors were not part of anymore? And one example of that would be like the Carleton Watershed Steering Committee. Would that fall under the same purview, or this request here fall under the same purview as that?
I'd have to think about that. Can I think about that and answer that question at Committee of the Whole? I'll tell you why. I'm not entirely sure what type of organization this is legally.
And that's my big question, and that was the reason, I think, reason that we bring this forward to Committee of the Whole, because I don't feel informed enough, number one, and number two, we have passed precedent where I used to sit as an appointed member on the Carleton Watershed Steering Committee. It was under the decision of council and the direction of the CAO that we not be part of that, and I cannot remember the reasons why. However, as a community representative from the Carleton area, I decided that I'll be sitting there myself.
Mm-hmm. I think when we did the review of the committees and boards, the thought was that where there could be a conflict, we would choose not to actively sit on the committee. So
but could there not be a conflict here?
I don't know enough to know yet, but I'm guessing.
The reason why I say that is because where the suggested sites, there would be a conflict, because Mariner Center, number one, I think there's a lot of conflicts there, but however, I think you should bring that to the committee whole and have your input then, so you can do a little bit more research, Madam CEO. That's just my only point.
That'd be consensus of council then? Okay.
So just to manage council's expectations, knowing a little bit about what's on council's agenda, this is probably going to be in the new year.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to item number 10, reports. Mariner Center, is there any report, Councillor Allen, or? Go ahead.
Don't run away, Ms. CAO. I wasn't at the last meeting as I was away.
Yeah.
I was working away, and I believe our Madam CAO was actually, I'm hoping, present at that meeting.
I was, yes.
So she may be able to give a report in my stead.
Can we come back to that? I'm going to pull up my notes.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yes.
I will, for
Okay.
sure, yep.
10.1.2, Regional Solid Waste, our meeting is November 4th. Let me get this here. Western County Regional Library.
I'm just very quickly going to share that there is the annual fundraiser, which is the eating in the stacks, dining in the stacks, coming up in early November. So if people are interested in going to that, I highly suggest. Nothing new in terms of the government's request for funding.
Oh, I apologize.
Sorry.
No, my fault. My fault.
Sorry? No, Dining in the Stacks, early November fundraiser. So tickets are available now for the Dining in the Stacks fundraiser at the Western Counties Regional Library, 1. And 2, no new update with regards to funding from the government, done.
Okay. Western Regional Enterprise Network, any report? Well, I think you talked a little bit about the internet already.
I did, just want to say there's a quarterly report, is it?
Mr. Warden, can you turn on your microphone?
Oh, I thought,
Button.
I
I'll
thought
just
she
leave it
left it
on.
on.
Just want to say there's a quarterly report that's attached. We have a meeting coming up October 29th. We will be discussing internet at that meeting. That's the LOC meeting. And we also will be discussing some long-term funding that will be looking for the government to discuss with that, and then all the partners involved. Done.
Okay, Yarmouth Area Industrial Commission, just anyway, Deputy Warden or Lauren. Otherwise, I'll just give a quick report. Went over the financials. Other discussion was in camera, so I can't discuss that. But the financial part, there is going to be a bit of a deficit because of the doctor shortage in the area. So our deficit for the medical centers is going to be a little higher. So, and basically, like I say, the other part of the meeting was in camera, so I can't discuss that. Yarmouth and Acadian Shore Tourism. Yarmouth County Solid Waste Park. There was a meeting, but it was, today we had a short, early meeting, but that was on financial items, so on a tender package for our asbestos site. And at this time, the committee has rejected all tenders on the project, or on the tender for our asbestos site. And we gave direction to our manager to look at an alternate way to handle asbestos, of storing it possibly in a 40-foot container, and then when it's full, we could ship the asbestos to Arlington. It's in the valley. The new rules and regulations from Environment caused the tender price to go from what we had put aside or thought it would cost to more than double cost. And Alan had done some cost figuring out and so on, and if I'm not mistaken, he said at the rate that it stated, he said it would take you over 1,000 years to pay back what you'd have to pay to do the asbestos site. So it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer not to do it, because we have to put in a major French drain, and the French drain was astronomical, the cost. You cannot bury asbestos anywhere near the water table, and the water table out there is kind of quite high, so we have to build a French drain quite deep in order to take the water table down low enough that we could bury asbestos. So it was not economical, viable. It was not in any way, shape, or form. As Alan had figured out, he said if we took and subsidized all the asbestos over the next multiple years, he said you wouldn't spend as much as it was to do the tender or to do the contract. So okay, that was the report. Here we are, Yarmouth International Airport Corporation, Warden Anthony and Deputy Warden Cunningham. We are in negotiation, so I don't think at this time should be any
I
discussion.
have nothing to
Yeah.
report.
No. Advisory, Audit Committee, you just had the auditors in this evening and so on, brought you up to speed. CAO Committee, myself, Deputy Warden, and Councillor Durkee, there's been no meeting. Doctor Recruitment and Retention, I don't know. Okay, go ahead, Councillor.
Sorry, I'll try and make this quick, but there's some great news and some not so great news. First of all, we had a great meeting, as always. Just to let you know that for doctors coming from away, we have reciprocity with the UK, Ireland, USA, and Australia. So people coming here from those that have been educated in those countries do not need to write Canadian exams. So they can come here without doing that. The good news is we had 2 family doctors come for a visit in October. One of them has signed a contract already, and they will be coming soon, early 2020. The other is we have, actually might be sooner than that, before the end of the year. We definitely have a resident who's agreed to start as soon as he graduates, and that will be in early 2020. There are 2 other students who are looking at agreeing to stay, and we have another individual who came for a visit, but he's considering a number of places, and let's hope we did a great job selling ourselves. One of the wives of the resident came up with a list of activities available to people in Yarmouth County. And so what we're going to do is take all of those activities. Our community navigator is going to work with Neil from YASTA to do a portal so that any newcomer to Yarmouth County can go on and look at all the recreational activities, sports, whatever there is to do, it'll be on that portal. Apparently there are 2 major announcements coming at the Chamber of Commerce event tomorrow night, so we'll find out more about that. Don't ask me, because Carrie would not tell me. The cancer care clinic loss of doctors was discussed. Apparently chemo is still going to be happening here. Initial assessments are going to happen in Halifax, and what they're working on is virtual help, so that if someone is receiving chemo or radiation, and they would have, apparently Dr. Murphy would meet with them, and then they would do a Skype call with people in Halifax, so that you wouldn't just have to travel to Halifax to do the consultation. If that's all it was, if it was just a meeting, then that can, so they're working on having that done here. I don't have all the information about that, because really it was out of our purview. The only thing I do know is that there could be a new oncologist coming, and the other thing that I do know from that the latest meeting, and you can add to that, anybody can add to that if they want, is that nothing has been decided about transportation. Now, we're down in internists. We're going to be needing those. And Dr. Brian Moses strongly emphasized this, that negativity is really bad. It ruins the opportunity to keep people. So when people come from away and they hear people complaining, whether it be on social media, whether it be to doctors, it makes it very difficult. People, and I can't strongly emphasize this, and this is from Dr. Moses, that people need to understand that pressing doctors to do things that they shouldn't be doing is not helpful. So I know that we're lacking in family doctors. You can see that our local community group is working really hard on that. But there are patients who are going to specialty doctors and asking them to do things that really they're not supposed to do, and if they don't do them, then they're getting angry with them, and that is not helping. So he said basically pestering docs does not help them stay if they continue to ask them to do things that they're not supposed to. So please, I don't want to say we need to have patience. We've had more patience, and everybody's frustrated, and it's been going on for so long. But again, our new navigator is in place, and she's working very hard to make a difference, and everybody's pleased with the progress that's being made. And I think that's it for now.
Deputy Warden, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for that report, Councillor Durkee. It's always, I'm very interested in hearing how that committee is making out. I do have a couple questions. When regards to the recruitment, are you talking about GPs or family doctors, or are you talking about specialists, or it doesn't matter? Yeah, I'm not looking to say, well, yeah, we're recruiting a GP and we're also recruiting a heart surgeon. I don't know.
Okay, so the update that I just gave you was strictly for family doctors.
Okay.
Okay, so that we have, the Nova Scotia Health Authority has 2 recruiters working in this area. One is doing family doctors, that's Patty Smith, and Karma Chakowski is doing specialties. So in this case, this report was specifically for family docs. We do know that we have 3 psychiatrists that are coming, so that would be on the specialty side. In terms of heart, anything else, I have no update or no information on that at this time.
Yeah, I was there when Dr. Drew Bethune had mentioned about the oncologists, that they won't be traveling to Yarmouth no more. And unfortunately, I need the services of an oncologist. And one thing that I find interesting is we're talking about these video conferences with different doctors, and one thing that I just learned today is the oncologist will not do a video for your initial visit. They will not do a video conference call. And that's something that I learned new today. I was under the assumption that if you need their services, that you would automatically, well, your first visit with them would be over. They used to travel down here, of course, but now that that's been put on hold, I thought that you could automatically do the video, but that's not true. You still have to go up there and visit them. And if you're going through chemo and radiation treatments, that means that you're going to have to see 2 of them. Because something else that I didn't realize, in oncologists, they do chemo and radiation, but they don't do both. So that means anyone who needs their services, they have to get an appointment with one doctor, and say for chemotherapy, and then they have to turn around and go back up again to see a radiologist. So when we're talking about travel and stuff, I've learned over the past 3 months how much of a bear it actually is, because unfortunately I'm just starting to go through that process. I guess I know that is no concern of your committees, that you guys are working diligently to get GPs. And one other thing I wanted to mention was, if you were assigned to an oncologist and they can't take you on in the time recommended by the surgeon, you have to, if you don't have a family doctor like myself, you have to go back to outpatients to get re-referred back up to Halifax for a different oncologist. They cannot refer from one oncologist to another. I'm learning that this system is broken very fast. And I certainly hope that our committee succeeds. And I just have one final question, because I could draw this council meeting on all night. One final question to you would be, is if you guys find any GP, family doctors, whoever that doctor may be for the psychiatry field, is there any guarantee from Nova Scotia Health that they're going to get assigned to this area? Or are they going to be taken and put elsewhere? Are all these doctors that you guys are recruiting, are they for our area?
They are for us. So Nova Scotia Health Authority does the recruiting. If they find someone and they want to come to Yarmouth, then they're coming to Yarmouth. If we find someone, because we can do it too, we refer them back to Nova Scotia Health Authority to do all the paperwork. But that person is not just for, that is for Yarmouth or Barrington, because Barrington is working with us as well.
Because the point has been put out there, and I know it's not true, I just wanted to hear it from you, that if we recruited a doctor, well, Nova Scotia Health says, well, they need them more than you up in Amherst, so we're going to send them to Amherst.
No.
That point was made to me. I said, that's not true, and I was going to bring that issue up here tonight whenever you gave your report.
Well, thank you for bringing that up.
Because I do know that some people are watching live, or they're going to watch it after it's recorded, and I just wanted to make that a point that you did say that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Cushion.
Not to delay things or prolong things, but I just wanted to, I was at the Dr. Bethune's meeting the other day also, and as with Warden, Deputy Warden, and Liz was there also, and they were telling me about, in order to get here, they have to drive here. And I mentioned to him, so, well, we have the airport, can they fly here? And he didn't know that our airport was functional. So, and he said he would look into that, see what he could do, but he also was referred, your navigator person, Councillor Mooney mentioned that to him. He said he'd really like to talk to her also, so I'm assuming that this did happen. But it just goes to show you how our airport is being underutilized. Instead of doing a 3.5-hour drive down, a 3.5-hour, you get down here and in a half an hour and back in a half an hour, and spend a couple of days here, sort of thing. So it's, you know, there's another angle for our airport that we got to push, and if he has some influence on that too, that'll be good. So let's help support that.
Yes.
You know, because this stuff is vital, and we have infrastructure here that could help that.
It's all things that have to be brought forward. Okay, that was your report. Okay. 9.2.4 or 10.2.4 EMO Executive Committee. There's been no meeting. Oh, I'm sorry.
Since we're going through the REMO, is that committee going to be changed, and is there going to be committee members that are going to be changes? So I guess that question is through you, Mr. Chair, to the CAO.
So the new agreement calls for an executive and a planning committee, similar structure, but we will probably be asked to review our appointments and just reconfirm them.
Okay, thank you very much.
Heritage Advisory Committee. Go ahead.
I'm going to start to lose it soon. We had a Heritage Advisory Committee recently. There was a request that was denied. We're still having a discussion about the cattle pound because we're in Port Maitland, because we're just not sure what to do with it. The issue is that there's no land around it to access it, to maintain it, and so it's getting overgrown as it does every year, so we're going to have a discussion about it.
Okay, thank you. Joint Green Energy Committee, Councillor LeBlanc isn't here, but I heard you mention...
I believe there's a meeting coming up, maybe the 23rd or the 25th of this month. Councillor LeBlanc will be attending, so I won't have to be, I won't be there.
Okay, I guess then I'll direct it to the CAO. Can I be notified of that meeting? I'd like to participate. That's Neil McKenzie is the, yeah. If possible, I'd like to go to that meeting, so on. Marketing and Promotions Levy Advisory Committee.
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Councillor.
We have a meeting coming up for that. Big concern is because of the lack of ferry, the income for the hotels and motels is down roughly 40% this year, and so the big concern is having enough money to
Fund.
to pay for events, that will give to events, and funding of YASTA, so that needs to be discussed.
Planning Advisory Committee. No meeting, Mr. Chair. Yarmouth County Joint Police Advisory Committee. I'm sorry, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you very much. That meeting is being held tomorrow. I've already sent an email that I will not be able to attend, but I do know that Councillor Lauren Cushing will be attending that, if I remember his email correspondence.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I believe that meeting has been rescheduled for one day next week. I don't know exactly what day it's going to be, but am I correct on that?
Say again?
The Police Advisory Committee? Is that going to
So
be rescheduled for next
It's
week?
canceled I think next week. We think we have a quorum.
Yeah. Okay, so it's been moved, yeah.
Yarmouth Recreation Committee. No meeting. Okay, I guess 10.3 ad hoc, the Ames Network Asset Management Cohort. Keep it short, please, Councillor. We got 5 minutes.
Yeah, you guys can go as long as you want. Yeah, all right, yeah, okay. Yeah. September the 27th, I attended an asset management meeting in Halifax. I sat down on a panel with Mayor David Devine from the Mahone Bay and Mayor George Harding from Lockport and Mayor Danny McGovern from Stellarton. And we had some questions that were posed to us, and each of us gave our opinions of him. So to manage it's very informative, it was. But I also just like to mention, a lot of you probably are not aware, well, you are aware that our CAO did go to Newfoundland and made a presentation there, and she was going to make a presentation at this meeting also, but because of things that happened at the council, she couldn't attend. But she got high praises from the people who attended in Newfoundland. So I just wanted to make sure the rest of you councilors know that our CAO was she did a very impressive presentation. So that's it. How's that? Quick.
Fence Arbitration Committee, there's been no meeting, and there's been no issues at this time. 10.3.3 Municipal Alcohol Project, Councillor Cushion again.
Yes. I won't go into it because of there's quite a bit of stuff I was going to review with you, but just to let you know, there is a new person in place for the Nova Scotia Health Authority, and I'm not quite sure if I'm going to pronounce his name correctly or not, but it's Livness Nunford. He's taken the place of Larry. Yes. So we had our meeting yesterday. We just had a quick summary of what went on, but I'll give a more in-depth report on our next meeting to keep this short. So.
And the last one, the Cape for Shoe Steering Committee.
That's
Councillor?
me again. Yes, we've met. I think we all know that the EDM has been awarded to do the project, and on November 4th, we're going to have a kickoff, they call it, with EDM to start the process of doing our what's the proper word I'm looking for?
Comprehensive master
Consultation sort of thing, right? So, anyway. And I'll keep that short, too. How's that? I beat all of you.
Yeah. Committee of the Whole recommendations, sir, if I remember right, there isn't any recommendations. The next item up was adjournment, but the next item up is I need a motion to extend our time to go into. There is a motion or a thing from years ago that
2-hour meetings.
yeah, that had to be extended. The council had to have a motion to extend after 10 o'clock, and I think that was on a majority of council. So I need a motion to extend past 10 o'clock. That we have, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councillor.
Right, I'll move that we both extend beyond 10 o'clock and that we go in camera.
Okay. Moved by Councillor Cunningham, seconded by Councillor Allen. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Thank you. You got about a 3-minute break, and thank you to the public. Mike?